Paper Girls on Amazon Prime. Uh, Dave, how many episodes you get to with this? Just the
I
first
only
couple?
saw the first episode of Paper Girls.
Hmm.
Season one is out on Prime Video in full right now. The long-awaited Brian K. Vaughan comic adaptation. And we talked about Brian K. Vaughan before because his other comic series was adapted last year on FX, The Last Man on Earth. So not our first time visiting him. He's a very accomplished, prolific comic writer. But Paper Girls finally came out after some COVID hiccups with production. And you've seen more than the first episode, correct?
Yeah, I've seen half the series to this point.
Right.
And I gotta say, after the first episode, I wasn't totally drawn into Paper Girls, but I wanted to stick with it because I thought there was a lot of potential. And, I think for me, you get Ellie Wong right at the beginning of the first episode, and I'm like, huh, I like Ellie Wong. What's going on here? And then pretty quickly we're with the kids, and it feels like we're back into like a Stranger Thing esque type world. Uh, there's so much mystery and unexplained around the first couple of episodes that it's kind of hard to stick with for me. And I also didn't really love being with the kids. But once the kids start teaming up with some of the adults and exploring what it means to be going through this time travel world, I thought the show started to take off a bit more. So it definitely is a show that picked up for me. There were certainly some points in the last episodes that I saw that I still had was like scratching my head and wasn't totally caught by. But I think there's if you stick with it, you get a little bit more payoff. What'd you think after the first episode, though?
Yeah, well, I think it did a pretty good job at establishing our core characters here, our paper girls, um, and I think it does enough to differentiate itself from the kind of obvious rote comparison that it's like, oh, this is like Stranger Things, female Stranger Things, taking
Right.
place in 1988. We literally see them all on bikes,
Hmm.
period setting. But it's not as like overtly referential to retro stuff like Stranger Things, and it's not as like genre heavy, or at least it's just more like strictly sci-fi. There's like not a horror occult element, like the
Hmm.
Stranger Things villains aspect. So it's still genre, but I think our four paper girls are established at least in an archetypal way early on. It's like, okay, I see what we're doing here, but did you feel like the momentum continued right into episode two? Because it felt like the kind of like strong setup pilot you established what the show is, this time travel
Hmm.
uh, element. How they're going to get back to their time, interfacing with their future selves, this future timeline.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the momentum continued after that setup, or did it kind of grind and get into, oh, we got 8 episodes to fill?
you know, uh, I found the least enjoyable part of the show to be the stuff around the mystery and the time travel and like who are these people and uh as they start to like discuss like what the actual plot is, how there's these I forgot what they were, like the STF who are like in the future, but then there's the other more rich people who are trying to stop the STF who are further in the future. It's
Time cops.
yeah, the it's all very convoluted, and I just found that to be so not enjoyable. Stuff I liked was seeing Ali Wong as Aaron interacting with 13-year-old 12-year-old Aaron. I thought that stuff's really interesting, kind of seeing these children dealing with themselves or their family members in the future. I thought was really interesting and really fun, especially when Mac goes to find her brother. That episode, which I think is episode 3, I just found to be really enjoyable, and I thought Sophia Rosinski was giving a really strong performance in that one. But man, there's a CGI moment in I think it's the end of episode 4 into episode 5 that I just was like really put off by. I didn't think it was very good at all, and just also like I don't want to spoil things for people too much, but like it just felt kind of cheesy in a sense. Like I don't. It probably is true to the comic, but just the way it was executed didn't feel that great. Um, I do think Sakai Ebeni, who is adult Tiffany, but I believe is also like the villain in this, is really I think she's really convincing as a villain, and I think a very hateable face. But man, I think if I didn't want to bring the content to the people, I might not have stuck with this show. So I think give it a few episodes, see where you're at after episode 3, and then see if you can look past some of less fine points of it. Would be my recommendation.
Yep, I hear you. I feel like you kind of wanna do some genre stuff to
Hmm.
watch this right now. I wasn't really necessarily in the mood, you know. I think Steppenwall pointed this out, where it's like kind of unfortunate that Paper Girls comes out post Stranger Things, even though the comic itself actually predates Stranger
Yeah,
Things. But it's just, and the last Why the Last Man's the same kind of thing, where it predated The Walking Dead, but The Walking Dead beat it to the screen, and the comparison points, the wires get crossed there in terms of how people perceive things. So not necessarily fair to Paper Girls, but that's just kind of how it goes sometimes, I guess.